Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinnie Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com 5 days a week. I would really love people to be listening live. That's 5 till 7 Central, 3 till 5 Pacific, 6 till 8 Eastern. If you happen to be in the Uber Kingdom, it'll be 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. late at night when all the conspiracy theorists are still awake, watching scary documentaries and giving yourself frickin' nightmares. And in New Zealand, speaking of a frickin' nightmare, 10 a.m. till midday is the time to listen in. That's Tuesday through Saturday, because we're broadcasting live from the future. And my very special guest is Rosemary Guiley, and I would like to ask you just a sort of a... I'm not sure how you're going to answer this, and nobody ever would, but is there anything that you kind of self-censor, things that you choose not to talk about because you think people might quite not get it, or you're afraid of being judged angrily by people for it?
There's really nothing on my list like that. In fact, I don't even have a list like that. I've been very open over the years about my research, and also my willingness to change my opinions about things. You know, as any researcher, as you get into finding more evidence and uncovering new leads and things like that, well, some of your old ideas about explanations for things have to go by the wayside. And some researchers are not real willing to do that. I think we have to be willing to do that. So I've always talked about the evolution of my own research. My work is really oriented around the how and why of our experiences, and I'm not real concerned about trying to prove the paranormal to anyone. For me, it's existed my whole life. I've taken that as a fundamental truth of reality. And so the audience that I address consists of people like that who've had experiences, they're looking for explanations, they want to understand how these things fit in. They may even be interested in wanting to explore other kinds of experiences. And I always tell people, look first for natural explanations. And then if you can't find any that reasonably fit, then, we consider the supernatural and the paranormal. So over the years, my own boggle point has gotten pushed further and further out. And things that I've taken on board, years ago, I probably could not have imagined going into all of this with the Djinn and hidden agendas and things like that. It was a natural growth of my research. I came across evidence that I simply had to check out, leads I had to follow, and I had to integrate the findings that I came across. So if I leave it to people to make their own conclusions about things. I have found over the years that there are many people who resonate with these areas, and I think that a lot of very serious, inquiring people, a lot of very balanced, people that you would say, these are not fringes that we're dealing with. These are mainstream people who've had extraordinary experiences, and they're looking for information and for perspective.
How do you maintain your perspective on all of this? Because I've got the philosophy that if you travel to hell, hell comes back with you to a large degree. And if you've got your head buried in this paranormal realm with vengeful Djinn and so on and so forth, has it ever really worn you down at some point?
I've never felt worn down. I've always felt that I've had a great deal of spiritual help and protection around me, and that I am doing what I agreed to do or planned to do in this lifetime. I believe in reincarnation, and that we set out a blueprint before we come into a life, and that this lifetime, the inquiries that I'm pursuing as a writer and researcher, are follow-ups on other lifetimes where I've had similar activities as well. So all of these things have helped me to maintain my own equilibrium and perspective. For most of my life, I have had my own spiritual practice. I consider myself to be a deeply spiritual being, not necessarily religious.
In my opinion,
my spiritual needs, but I appreciate religions at the same time. And I followed spiritual practices of meditation and prayer and a study of esoteric philosophy, religious philosophy, trying to find the plumb line toward, the higher purpose. And I think that all of us are called to that in our own way, whether we find that through our families, through our jobs, or some sort of overarching spiritual pursuit. That's really the calling that goes out to each and every one of us.
Can I ask as well, who's one of your biggest influences, or rather, who's given you the biggest platform to speak about those of you been on any mainstream media things like NBC, CNBC, or whatever?
Well, in terms of media platform, probably shows like Coast to Coast AM. I've been on Coast to Coast AM for quite a few years now, and that has a very sizable audience. I find that for this kind of work, radio is a much better medium than television because you can get into things more in depth. And I've appeared in lots of documentaries over the years. I like information-based shows rather than, a lot of the reality shows. But radio is a very good medium for getting a lot of information across, and the audiences who like radio are very responsive, and I get feedback. And the feedback I get is very important to me because I listen to what people are saying and what they want to know and what their experiences are, and that helps me direct my own research as well. In terms of researchers, it depends on what front you're looking at, from the metaphysical into the paranormal. But certainly in regard to these topics that we've been talking about tonight, Vinny, like the Djinn and the manipulative entities and things like that, the work of John Keel has been very important to me. He was a friend of mine as well while he was alive, and John was very much ahead of his time with a lot of his ideas about what's out there and what is manipulating or shaping our experiences. He did tend to have a pessimistic view toward the end. He said that, this was all a cosmic trickster and there wasn't anything we could do about it. It was something that was playing with us at our own expense. But he talked about portholes and windows into parallel dimensions and beings from the planet coming through these dimensions, things that, 30, 40 years ago were not in discussion much in terms of what was happening. So I've always considered him to be one of the true pioneers in the field.
And in terms of being, who you are, I presume you're pretty happy about that, and your place in the world right now. And in terms of your methodologies for just, keeping on an even keel and going through things as you do and keeping your positive attitude, what advice would you give to people who are maybe struggling right now to deal with these realities that you've already seemed to have dealt with?
Daily practices of meditation are very important because it really is like working out the spiritual gym. There's something about, and praying is important too, but meditating gets us into different levels of consciousness that seems to strengthen the buffer around us, the aura of our vital life force benefits from that, and to be well-read spiritually, philosophically, and even in the paranormal literature. I think it's very important to have these spiritual underpinnings, whatever religion you want to follow or whatever esoteric philosophy you want to follow. It's important to have that because it's a foundation that you need to come back to over and over again to keep your bearings and get your bearings when you've been thrown for a loop.
You've ever been thrown for a loop, have you?
I think everyone goes through dark nights of the soul that happen in different ways, and I've had times in my life where I felt like I was losing my bearings, that I was being deserted by my spiritual allies. I had to find my way by myself. Most of these were just navigating the ups and downs of daily life. It's not so much a movie kind of confrontation with evil where it's, the green slime running down the walls, so to speak. But dealing with the darker entities has been problematic from time to time. And they've, you have problems. I haven't had, real serious problems like a lot of my cases. But they do manage to disrupt things from time to time. So, I'm like just every other person out there, and going through highs and lows and often struggling to find the line of truth. And that's really what we're all searching for. We're all searching for that truth with a capital T that explains to us who we are and what our journey is in this life and as a soul.
All right. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Her websites are visionaryliving.com and djinnuniverse.com. Make a donation at thevinnieeastwoodshow.com, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you again sometime.
No matter where you live, globalism affects you. Did you know that the Vinnie Eastwood Show has more subscribers than New Zealand Herald TV and is New Zealand's most popular YouTube news channel, where warm-hearted humour and a list of awesome guests talk about crucial issues which the mainstream media ignore? A show where you, the listener, can phone up with questions, comments and suggestions of guests. Vinnie is building a hub to connect truthers with raw information they need to become active. He can help you gain further skills such as website building, producing audio and video, and creating revenue streams in your own multimedia environment. Because Vinnie supports such a wide range of people in the truth movement, he is not government or corporate backed and relies entirely on your donations. Give now, give generously, or subscribe for $10 a month for access to ad-free video archives. Just visit thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and click donate.
Watching scary documentaries and giving yourself frickin' nightmares. And in New Zealand, speaking of a frickin' nightmare, 10 a.m. till midday is the time to listen in. That's Tuesday through Saturday because we're broadcasting live from the future. And my very special guest is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and I would like to ask you just a sort of a... I'm not sure how you're going to answer this, and nobody ever would, but... Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinnie Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com 5 days a week. I would really love people to be listening live. That's 5 till 7 Central, 3 till 5 Pacific, 6 till 8 Eastern. If you happen to be in the Uber Kingdom, it'll be 11 p.m. till 1 a.m. late at night when all the conspiracy theorists are still awake.
To change my opinions about things, as any researcher, as you get into finding more evidence and uncovering new leads and things like that, well, some of your old ideas about explanations for things have to go by the wayside. And some researchers are not real willing to do that. I think we have to be willing to do that. So I've always talked...
Is there anything that you kind of self-censor? Things that you choose not to talk about because you think people might quite not get it? Or you're afraid of being sort of judged angrily by people for it?
There's really nothing on my list like that. In fact, I don't even have a list like that. I've been very open over the years about my research and also my willingness about the evolution of my own research. My work is really oriented around the how and why of our experiences, and I'm not real concerned about trying to prove the paranormal to anyone. For me, it's existed my whole life. I've taken that as a fundamental truth of reality. And so the audience that I address consists of people like that who've had experiences, they're looking for explanations,